Continuation of the former video. Carbon dioxide is heavier than the other components of air, and consequently a higher concentration of carbon dioxide makes the air heavier, which increases its pressure. A higher concentration is the case in accumulations, including those that occur in the whole of the northern hemisphere. So the northern hemisphere exerts pressure on the southern hemisphere. This pressure takes place at the height of the ITCZ band, slightly above the equator, which is a relative barrier, and separates the air and carbon dioxide from the north from that of the south. In the course of the video you can clearly see the northern accumulation progressing to the equator and band. This is what we call phase 1. Next you can see that the pressure from the northern hemisphere is ripping apart the band barrier, and accumulation of carbon dioxide from the northern hemisphere starts overflowing the barrier, in the case of jet streams at speeds of over 200 km an hour. These jet streams and other now also disturbed jet streams are able to cause floods, droughts and other calamities across the whole world. You can see yet a second and earlier form of overflowing and crossing of the band barrier and equator. At low altitude you see it moving south-west. For instance, the northern hemisphere accumulation to the northwest of Africa will proceed in the direction of the Amazon forest and Brasil, which is where the Amazon River discharges in the Atlantic Ocean. Brasil, while it is located on the equator, is already south of the band that separates, so this approaching accumulation already has crossed over the barrier to the south. Initially the accumulation from the north will approach South America crossing the Atlantic Ocean, but will not overflow the Amazon forest nor anywhere else in South America. This is what we call phase 2. Phase 1 teaches us that despite emissions there is no accumulation in South America, nor anywhere else in the southern hemisphere. This is so because absorption of the Amazon forest, all other vegetation and oceans is larger than the emissions, and in the oceans emissions are relatively absent. This pressure from north to south, and its consequential flow-over are key to the rise of carbon dioxide in the world. The breakthrough or crossing of one or more jet streams during the third phase is always from the north to the south and causes disruption of all jet streams in the northern and the southern hemisphere, and plays a major role in calamities and extremes. We illustrate and prove the above in other videos and series. The Amazon forest, but all other vegetation in the tropics are extremely productive and consequently extreme carbon dioxide absorbers. That is why the tropics are the ideal place to produce foods, materials, goods, energy and fuels by means of agroforests, as well as to absorb carbon dioxide with agroforests. At this point we claim that by transforming into agroforest only a percentage of the degenerated agricultural lands of Brazil that have become unproductive will absorb all the carbon dioxide of the world. The calculations and proofs of this claim are presented in other videos. This means that the post-industrial rise of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere and oceans will come to a halt. This approach and initiative should receive all awards related to CDR, because it is the only way to achieve the objectives, and in fact they surpass the award's objectives. This halt of the rise of carbon dioxide concentration in the atmosphere could be achieved in two ways, but only the second way approach is fast and secure. The first approach could be done only by allowing the natural regeneration of trees, and thus without effort and without cost, but it would take at least 16 years. But unless total protection and isolation is achieved, this will not go undisturbed, because people will invade and explore this regenerating forest in legal or illegal ways. Total protection would cost and also seems politically difficult in Brazil or in any other tropical country that has potential and need for agriculture. So the only fast, secure and costless way to produce and generate revenue and income, and also solve all challenges, including climate challenges, would be by creating conditions for farmers and agribusiness to take the initiative to transform soils into agroforest. This second approach can be and is expected to be simple and costless, but right now it does not happen because the conditions are not fulfilled. First, the farmers and agribusiness are largely unaware of this approach or have doubts, especially if there will be sufficient market for their products, especially because all the food produced will be the equivalent of all the food that actually is produced by Brazil, and or all the wood products that actually are produced by Brazil. To feel secure about their market, they and or their products should need to be recognized. Certification of products from these agroforests could be decisive for its recognition. A certification for stopping further accumulation of carbon dioxide and/or of climate change would give the farmers and/or agribusiness the guarantee they need. The production of these carbon agroforests will be huge because actually Brazil already feeds 10% of the world population, and Brazil is one of the largest exporters of food in the world in tons of food. Only because Brazil exports unprocessed primary bulk and semi-processed commodities, it is not the country that makes the money, and its importance is quite unknown. Brazil feeds countries like China, the United States and Argentina. Also, the Netherlands and Spain are importers of not fully processed Brazilian foods etc., and make relatively the most money and get the recognition. Port infrastructures play an important role in the final processing and the making of money with exports. Resuming 1. Recognition and/or certification for stopping further accumulation of carbon dioxide and/or of solving climate challenges would give the farmers and/or agribusiness the guarantee they need to transform without any further charge. The example of Brazil, it is about the equivalent of producing an additional 10% of food etc. for the world, as well as solving all climate challenges, as well as probably also solving an important part of all non-climate related challenges of the world. It is obvious it will be quite a challenge for the world to maintain all humans and animals fed, so this additional food etc. will be very welcome. These carbon agroforests in Brazil would need a similar recognition to go ahead, produce and solve our challenges. We think there is room and advantage for foreign farmers and investors to participate in and thrive with this initiative. Recognition of other countries that are recognized right now will not be impeded or stopped by this initiative. In any case, the consumers are free and have the power to choose their food. Nevertheless, countries that do not host the carbon agroforests will not be able to have their products certificated and recognized for stopping further accumulation of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and/or for solving climate challenges, at least not to the same extent. Resuming 2. The production by these carbon agroforest will stop carbon dioxide increase globally, regulate climate globally and reduce emissions in the Northern Hemisphere. This will stop or reduce the pressure from the Northern Hemisphere and decrease or stop the consequent breakthroughs and disruptions of jet streams globally, which lead to droughts, floods and other extremes and calamities. So reducing the pressure from the Northern Hemisphere will greatly favor conditions to produce food, wood, etc. globally, but mainly so across the Northern Hemisphere. The need to approach politicians and even industry, pressuring them to reduce emission will have subsided or become less, because this approach already will reduce emission to the point of no further rise in carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, and this without the need to pressure or charge anybody for it. In this case it is more important, but not essential, to incentivize and eventually pressure politicians and even industry to wherever that is possible to support this initiative and the important certifications and eventual licenses. In this case it is very important to incentivize industry to wherever possible support and invest in the production of very tiny robots and/or drones that support the extensive agroforest maintenance and harvest, which both will be huge. On the bright side, while next to others like renewable fuels and electricity, also food and wood products will be produced in mass, no large and extremely expensive traditional agricultural machines or large forest exploring machines will be essential. This video is part of a series, and to be continued.